Reports the South Asian community has become Canada's largest minority over the last few years. As that community grows, it faces more social tensions and challenges, and that puts more pressure on people who help the community. Umbereen Inayet is a social worker and community activist in Toronto, and Manpreet Grewal is the manager of multicultural and immigrant services for Abbotsford Community Services near Vancouver. Welcome to you both. Manpreet, I'd like to begin with you and just throw some figures at you. The South Asian population grew by 38% since 2001. How is that reflected in your community in Abbotsford?
Well, I think based on the census figures this morning, our community has the highest, and I think that was even in the 2001 census, it has the highest concentration of South Asian population. So I think what it translates into at sort of a visual level is that wherever you go, whether it's a grocery store, it's a mall, in the schools, you're going to see that population very visibly. And in terms of the actual settling into Canada, you know, there are issues. The issues depend on the backgrounds of these individuals, you know, what their age is, what their socioeconomic background is, what their education levels are. So their integration and adaptation into our society all depends on what they bring to the country.
How would you prioritize, Manpreet, some of the challenges they do face?
I think for the individuals who come with very low English language skills, communication is the biggest challenge that they face. Access to different systems, trying to get the services that they need, knowing information, even basically simple things like employment standards or, you know, the laws of this land around family issues, around family violence, around child rearing practices. But for the ones who come with certain skills from other countries, their biggest challenge is just trying to find their way back into their own field, and that can be a very, very distressing issue for individuals.
And we know it's a discussion as well among politicians. Umbereen Inayet, I'd like to bring you into this conversation in Toronto. You're a second-generation Canadian, and your experience has been different. I mean, what would you say is the biggest challenge for you when it comes to, if I can assume, reconciling your Canadian identity with your South Asian heritage?
I think the biggest challenge is overcoming difference. I mean, we live in a North American society, so when you are here with a different skin color, you have a different religion, different culture, even have a different name, society can often make you feel like an outsider as well as an other. Also with this, I mean, even watching your parents struggle with those concrete issues that Manpreet mentioned can be difficult. Negotiating the system and learning about how you can find services for your parents is an issue, and often sometimes young people have to deal with acting as interpreters for the parents as well. So a lot of different things are involved in that.
Do you find, though, that as you know, our communities become more diverse, and I found this with myself when I was a young kid, that I was a little embarrassed to bring my friends home because my home smelled different, you know, my parents were different, but now, you know, as an adult, I'm very proud of that heritage. Did you find that with that pressure to assimilate, there's also a sense of pride that grows?
I think when I was younger, the issue was, how am I making my parents happy? How am I making my friends happy? And as I grew older, I started to ask, am I making myself happy? So I think part of the growing up process was learning how to more so acculturate myself. So trying to negotiate one culture with another as opposed to giving mine up in order to fit in.
Right. And that's probably one of the greatest balancing acts that each person has to find for themselves. One of the other difficulties, and Manpreet, you mentioned this, was not only problems with language, but problems with job opportunities and education. How big are those, and are they being solved?
I think where the credential evaluation piece is concerned, I think the political will is beginning to happen. You can see that, you know, you yourself mentioned that the politicians are talking about it. But I think that actually getting translated into some actions is not quite there as yet. So people are still struggling with, you know, where they get to in their own fields. When they come here, sometimes on a point system, they are made to feel that, yes, they qualify, they have all the skills which Canada requires of them. And when they come here, they find that disconnect, that they are told that their skills actually don't matter over here. So I think that's a big issue, which is going to take a while, and it's going to take, because there's regulatory bodies involved and everything. But the other ones who are not professionally regulated professions, even there, people, you know, like language or experience from their own countries sometimes not acknowledged. And then for the ones who are very low skilled, you know, it comes back to whether the English is, the one which the employer is requiring. But also the flip side is where there are large numbers in a population, people are looking for those people as employees because they're seen as an asset in businesses, like whether it's the banking industry or the grocery stores or, malls. They want some of those people as employees as well. So it's kind of working both ways.
You know, I could talk to you both for hours, and I wish I could, but I just want to finish off with Umbereen in Toronto and bring in the case of dating. I mean, you're a young person and you've got to overcome some of the attitudes about marrying within your own community, dating within your own. How is that changing, have you found?
I find it definitely does depend on individuals, but I have been seeing a higher rise in intercultural dating. But in terms of the acceptance of that, I'm not sure that it is as widely accepted as it could be. I think there still is a little bit of issues when it comes to, you know, how is their family going to accept me? How are you going to balance out both of your religions? How are you going to retain your own cultural? And again, it goes back to the question of what will everybody think. So I still think there is some issues around mixing the cultures, but it doesn't mean that it's not happening.
Fascinating conversation. I thank both of you for taking the time. Umbereen Inayet joining us in Toronto and Manpreet Graywell from Abbotsford. You both take care.